Right, guys, so our fasting challenge starts today. Both challenges are underway together at the same time with the 5 day fast challenge. Remember, the 5 day fast challenge is basically fasting all day until about 6 o'clock this evening, where we eat from 6 to 8 roughly. Now, see, when I say 6 to 8, guys, it's a ballpark figure. It doesn't have to be, it's not like synchronize your watch, eat, stop eating, right? It's roughly around that. There's a wee bit of leeway with it. Like if you're having the family dinner around 5, you move it to 5, that kind of thing. So try and make it as normal, as natural as possible, not so sort of dogmatic. Now remember, during this fasting window, black tea, black coffee, green tea, herbal teas, as long as there's no calories in them. We can get into sort of nuances as you can have this, you can have that, you can have this. Guys, I prefer just to keep a fast. That's where we get most of the benefits from. Remember, we're not just looking at this from a weight loss point of view, we're looking at this from a health point of view. How can I maximize the health benefits of this autophagy? You know, the things that come along with having low insulin, for example, especially for women in menopause and stuff like that. You're going to have a thing called hyperinsulinemia, where insulin's just elevated all the time because of cortisol and stuff like that. So we want to make sure that we get enough of the health benefits. Also gives us time in that rest and digest period where there's no food coming in. From an anti-inflammatory point of view, you know, from a whole array of health things that we'll talk about now over the next week or so. And that's just the 5 day challenge. Then we've got the 30-day challenge starting today too. Remember, this is the sort of the preload phase, or the pre-weight loss phase, where we go into that intermittent phase. Now the reason why this is important, guys, is because we want to be fat adaptive. We want to be what we call fat adaptive. Means that your body can break down fat for fuel. What happens whenever we're used to eating carbohydrates all the time? And I want you to think about this. So think about this for a wee second. Usually you'll find from the second you wake up, this is the average person. You know, some people, yes, they do fast, even if it's not purposefully, they don't eat maybe about 10 or 11 o'clock the first meal. But normally what you'll find is you wake up and you eat some sort of food, usually a cereal or a porridge. So there's carbohydrates coming in as soon as you wake up. That's insulin elevated straight away. If you're lucky, if you're doing really well, you probably stop eating at about 10 o'clock at night, 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night. So say you stop eating at 10 o'clock at night, it's more carbohydrates, so you have insulin all the time. Now, any meal that you take with carbohydrates, so let's just talk about your last meal. By the time that the carbohydrates are broken down, that carbohydrates is then broken down into blood glucose, and that glucose then is circulating around the system, waiting to be stored in the muscles of the liver or as fat cells. Your insulin's elevated to do that. Your insulin basically tells all the cells, can you open up and let this energy in? By the time your blood sugar has come back down to normal, or baseline, which means insulin has come down to baseline, is usually about 6 or 8 hours, depending on how fast you digest food or how fast your metabolism and certain other factors. So that comes down to about 8 hours. That gives you roughly, probably, so that's what, 10 o'clock, so that's 6 a.m. and then you wake up about 7, 8, and you eat those carbs again for breakfast. So you have about 1 hour of your life where there's no insulin present in your body. Does that make sense? Now, again, this is not normal for the human body. The human body is not designed to have insulin pumping all the time. Now, remember, from a fat burning point of view, we've got 2 energy hormones. By energy, I mean utilizing energy or doing stuff with energy. Remember, food is energy, calories is energy. Calories is just the unit of energy that's stored in a food. So if we eat food, we have to store that energy in the muscle cells or the liver cells or as fat cells. Insulin does that. So insulin is an energy storing hormone. So if you have insulin present, you're constantly in storage mode. All right, storage mode. When you have no insulin, we still need energy, right? Or if there's no food, there's no energy coming in, we still need energy. So we release the fat that we have, we release that for energy, because basically fat is stored energy. So only when insulin goes down to baseline does the pancreas then release glucagon. And what glucagon does is releases energy to give you stored energy. So you're only basically in a glucagonic state for about an hour or 2 in the middle of the night when you're not doing anything, you're not really moving, so you're not really getting that energy expenditure to actually burn fat. So when we're fasting, from your last meal last night, say 6-8 hours, insulin has gone down, energy's come down, you wake up this morning, your body's looking for some food, and yet it's not getting any. So the pancreas starts to release glucagon to say, right, take that body fat, break that down, and put that back into the bloodstream now as usable energy. So I can now use the energy that I have stored. So you're either in energy storage mode or you're in energy release mode. Alright? As soon as you're eating food and there's insulin, insulin is energy storing. You cannot burn fat while you are trying to store energy, because energy has to be released from the fat cells to burn it. Does that make sense? So this is why exercise, specifically resistance training during that fasting period, is now ramping up that energy expenditure. So your body's going, I need loads of energy here. I'm not eating any energy. There's no insulin to store any energy, so I'm using lots of glucagon to release all that fat for fuel so I can burn it as much as possible. Does that make sense? So this is why we want to be doing resistance training and lots of aerobic activity, like for going for a walk every single morning you wake up, to make sure that we're maximizing that energy expenditure, because we have no insulin present. Remember, even if you go to the gym and exercise, but you ate something carbohydrate based, say an hour before you went to the gym, and then you ate some straight after the gym, you're not really burning any stored energy, because there's still insulin present in your body. Does that make sense? So this is why we need to focus on this fasting period. When we do this and the body learns how to release that fat for fuel more efficiently because of the long fast, we now become fat adaptive. Alright, so the body becomes adapted at using fat for fuel and not constantly looking for the energy storage for fuel. Does that make sense? Good. Now, what happens if we would jump straight on a day on, a day off, day on, a day off? On the day that you're eating, you will be eating carbohydrates. So that next day, your body craves carbohydrates because it's used to having that fuel source. Alright? So if we do the 5-day preload, become very fat adaptive, because the body's used to using fat for fuel for 5 days. We have the 2 days off, Saturday, Sunday, not enough to knock us out of that ketosis state or that ketogenic state or that fat adaptive state. We go straight back into fast, eat, fast, eat, fast, eat. So on the fasting days, because you're fat adaptive already, we burn more fat for fuel, although we still get a day of full eating. Does that make sense? I know it gets very complicated, but we'll talk about it as we go along. So this is why it's important to really maximize this fasting period and to preload your day on the alternative day fasting with the 5-day fasting phase. We become fat adaptive, so we maximize everything that we're doing. Does that make sense? Good. Any questions? Let me know.